What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Morgue podcast, where we talk about the whiskey we're drinking, the horror we're watching. I'm your host, Mike, and today I am joined by the award-winning film director and producer, Steven LaMorte. We're going to talk about his projects from The Mean One to Screamboat, starring David Howard Thornton. And by chance, he sips on some whiskey, of course. So we're going to drink some Heaven Hill expressions and have some fun here. So, Stephen, thank you for being here and doing this.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I never say no to a glass of whiskey.
And right when we first connected, you did mention that you enjoy some whiskey. So I said I would send you over some samples. Those went on a journey in itself. In case you're wondering, I sent them to Stephen's old address, forgetting that he said he was moving, and somehow, miraculously, they made it back
The
to
power of the Postal Service.
yes, the power of the Postal Service. It made it to you. And we are good to go. You have the whiskey samples in hand. Now, I usually try to kind of curate it a little bit. I just felt like drinking some Heaven Hill stuff. I enjoy it. So to be honest, it was just a little bit of like a selfish bias where I'm like, you know what? Like me and Steven are just gonna drink some Heaven Hill here. I kind of can maybe work an angle for pairing, but we'll get to that. I'm gonna pour to begin with. I sent you this older Heaven Hill old style bourbon bottled in bond.
The
So
vintage.
yeah, yeah. So that's
There it
the
is. Heaven Hill
yeah.
vintage. And for you, I brought for this pairing because I thought I have nice whiskey tasting glasses, but I
Okay.
thought since we're going to be talking about Screamboat, I would bring my Steamboat Willie commemorative shot glasses,
That is awesome.
of which I have four because I used to, when I made the Mean One at Christmas time, I used to get Grinch gifts. And now that I'm the Mickey Mouse guy, I've been getting just nonstop Steamboat Willie stuff at my house. So there you go. Look at that.
That's a great way to go about it. And that talk about like elevating the drinkware. Like I feel boring having just a regular whiskey Glen now, and I'm like I should have something more exciting. I mean, I have a nice shining my
Oh,
beer cup here I use
nice.
for water, but I think I need like a Steamboat Willie one for sure. That's
I
for
mean, maybe we need to make a Screamboat Willie a glass because I mean, we have some really amazing merchandise. I'm peeling the label off now. We
yeah.
have some amazing merchandise that we have coming out soon. And, the cool thing is it's one thing to make the things that look cool, but it's another thing to make things like you'd actually use. So some of the things that brands we're partnering with and things that we're creating, it's like, oh, I would wear that or oh, I would use that. And
Yeah.
everything sort of kind of spins off of that because otherwise it's just like putting Steamboat Willie on a toilet seat. Like, would I use this? No, no, I would not. So we try to make sure everything that we do is kind of curated in that way. And maybe there needs to be some Steamboat Willie whiskey glasses. I don't know. Yeah.
I do think that it does lend to yeah, and that's really cool. I think it does lend to the communal aspect of like how fun your films are. So I do think like the drinking aspect, and we'll talk a bit about that after. But it really does like your films remind me of something that you just want to be with people, you want to enjoy it with others. I'll tell you about the first time that I watched Screamboat and was on my own until my wife walked in on a particular scene. But but
I'm
I
sure
do
I
think
know
it's
which one it was. I'm
yeah,
sure I
you
know
could
which
probably
one it
piece it
was.
together. Yeah. But I do think your films do lend to a communal aspect. So the whole point is here we do need drinkware, but I do like that you are on brand with the shot glasses there. So Stephen, cheers. I'm gonna have a sip of this.
Cheers. Look at that. This green boat.
I'm so glad I chose this one.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
so Stephen, I didn't even ask. You just mentioned you're into whiskey, but are you particularly like a Scotch guy, a bourbon guy, a little bit of everything?
I like a little bit of everything. I used to be more partial to Scotch, just
Mhm.
because of like the I was only drinking whiskey on like really special. Well, first I was, just drinking whatever bourbon. Then I sort of went on like a Scotch sort of journey. The more I was traveling, the more I was like, oh, once you go overseas, like you can really get some amazing Scotch.
Yeah.
I had a long layover in Heathrow and they ended up doing like a Scotch tasting tour because they have like tastings at all of these, all the different stores. And I brought home a bottle of Duthac Glenmorangie, which is like my favorite
Yeah.
Scotch. And they were like, yeah, this one's only available at the airport. And I was like, if I told anyone in America that I had airport whiskey, they'd be like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And it's a great bottle, and I'm still working on it to this day. I only break it out like Christmas and New Year's, like the only two times I break it out. But now that we've been traveling a lot more. We've been doing like horror conventions, and I'm seeing a lot more of like Middle America and Midwest. I've definitely been ever since I went to Nashville. I was like, oh man, me and bourbon are buddies, and so I've been really going down and sort of exploring the bourbon path. And so yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I think that's cool because I personally have no prejudice against any whiskey, and I'll try everything. And I just yeah, it depends on mood. And actually, lately I've been doing a lot of Scotch, so it's kind of nice to return to some bourbon with you. And this particular one, so I mean, if you're watching the video version, it is a little bit of an older bottling. It's not like super vintage, but I think it was in the 2000s. A friend gave it to me. There is to me like a distinctive note that's a little bit more like I think of Smarties. And if my Canadian friends, I don't mean the chocolate Smarties. I mean the American candy Smarties. But I get that
Crushed
note on it.
sugar.
And yeah, crushed sugar. I get a lot of that sweetness on it. But yeah, this is one that I really, really enjoy. So I'm glad I get to share it with you.
It's very tasty. I mean, I think there's something to the character of whiskey, and the this bourbon in particular, I think, is not overly smoky, but not also too like it's smooth, but it's not sweet, and and I
Yeah.
like that. I think sometimes when a whiskey drifts too far into the sweetness, some of the unique flavor and character of it starts to disappear.
Yeah.
But this is good because I feel like there's like your old fashioned and you're mixing whiskeys, and then you've got your like sipping whiskeys, even if it's a bourbon, which tend to be a little rougher around the edges flavor wise. And
Yeah.
this is nice. I like
Yeah,
this.
and for a while too, I was when you get deep into whiskey, you want to try everything cask strength. So you're getting into the high 50s, 60s, delving into that territory. And now I find that like bottled in bond, 100 proof, 50% is like a really nice sweet spot for like you
Hmm.
can sip on it. Like you said, you still get some of that sweetness. There's a little bit of a punch, but it's a nice middle ground to play with there. But so before we get into some questions about some of the films you've done, which we'll definitely talk about, I always like delving into like the genesis of someone's story and like their journey. So doing a bit of research on you, I know that you are always a storyteller and you enjoyed doing stop motion Lego videos at the
Hmm.
age of 9. Is there any particular ones that stand out to you? And do you actually still have like were any of these recorded?
They were. I think all of those files, all of my stop motion movies are tragically on a computer that was like donated, years and years and years ago. I don't even know how you would get them off because
Someone's
there's
enjoying them right now.
right. Someone's like, wait a minute, that voice sounds like drunken Kermit the Frog. That's Steve. Yeah, I mean it's something about being an only child and needing to find ways to entertain yourself. And I think there's a really interesting thing of like stop motion forces you to really or take your time because you're really animating like one. You have to make these choices very deliberately.
Mhm.
How fast are you moving the arm? How there's no real motion, so all of the sound effects have to be added after the fact, right? So if I'm doing like I did like a little sword fight, so I'm like, oh, how am I going to get these sword sounds? Like you couldn't even use like nowadays when you do a sword fight, you still have to put in new sound effects, but there's still the swords are hitting, so you're still hearing the clanging and stuff. When you
Mhm.
do it in stop motion, there's no sound, so the whole sound bed has to be built. So really doing stop motion movies forced me to pay attention to every aspect of filmmaking, whether it was the special effects or, the sound and music, because it starts off as just a bunch of pictures that are strung together and, sort of lend themselves to every aspect of storytelling. And then as I got older, I started doing, sort of like videos with my cousins who were all like the same age, and the family's
Yeah.
like, great, give him a camera, and all the kids will be occupied all day because filmmaking takes a really long time.
Yeah.
And then once I got to high school, I started, you know, doing the school TV station, which is where I met the producers of Terrifier, Mike Levy and Steve Delasala. And so we were all making like stupid skits. When I was growing up, it was like MTV had all these like really trashy reality shows.
Yeah.
And so we would do like knockoffs of those, but they'd all be scripted and, it would all be like some ridiculousness. And I really, because it was closed circuit TV and it was like television, it
Mhm.
really taught me a lot about like shoot something, shoot it fast, and then like the bell would ring and class would start, and then you'd know if people liked it because they would yell at you in the hallway if they thought your sketch was good. So it was like a really fun boot camp for me. And then it, just sort of evolved into I went to film school and they're like, okay, so now we're going to start with just picture, or now we're going to start with just sound. It was like I was cranking out a sketch every other week, like
Yeah.
shot, cut, the cast, like,
The boot
wasn't the
camp.
same people. We'd put teachers in it because those were like our name actors because everyone knows the funny English teacher. Everybody knows
Yeah.
the coaches, and we'd cast them in
I'm
whatever.
an English teacher, by the way. I want to be the funny English teacher.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So like, those were like our celebrities. So it was like, oh, we were doing all this stuff, and it was kind of the proving ground that led to sort of everything about the way I make my movies and sort of the what I enjoy, which is like making people laugh and making,
Yeah.
not just make weird little things for myself. I'm really always trying to think about the audience and where are they going to see it, and are you going to be with a bunch of friends? Are you going to be, is this a popcorn flick, or am I trying to make you feel an emotion? Is it
Yeah.
both? And yeah, so that's
That
kind of how
that
I.
that's cool. Like I didn't know that was the connection to Fuzz on the Lens because I was gonna ask you
Mhm,
later in terms of how you connected with them because obviously we connected through Jamie
mhm.
and
And they
that
met
camp.
Jamie through me.
Oh, so it was through
I
you.
brought them Jamie. Yes.
I'm that guy in the meme with like all the strings
The
behind me.
strings. Yeah. Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's cool because you're kind of living out this like high school reunion, like doing what you love. Like you're making films, imagine with people you hung out with in high school. And it brought me back to my high school because we were the piloted school to try to basically have our own like television network. The teacher who came into the school,
Hmm.
he worked in TV. So each classroom had one installed, and then they had the production, they had the morning news, and then they had skits. And when I was setting up the question to talk about like your background, I thought about storytelling, but I didn't think about all the production aspects, like
Hmm.
from your stop motion to even like you just said, working within a period in a class and figuring out how you're going to get your shot, how you're going to edit. The bell rings, boom, it's done, it's released. You're getting your reception immediately and being able to kind of gauge how people respond to that, which I think is super important. And I feel like it resonates in what you do now because like we'll talk about it. It seems very intentional like the mood and tone of your films, and I think you walk a really cool fine line there. But before we get to that,
Thank you.
you on your website it says you worked for Sony, it was
Hmm.
Apple, and even WWE was on there,
I
and like
did.
my
Yeah.
eyes lit up. I'm like, so I know you did a bit of like storytelling for them. Can you speak to a little bit more about like how you started working in this area of media where you were kind of doing the storytelling for other people at first?
Well, I mean, I think once you're trying to get work for as you go to film school and they're like, yeah, you're going to be a director and you're going to make movies, but then you have to pay bills, and have money for whiskey. So, I started even before I graduated, I started lying about my age and doing music videos and this was very early in the days of internet, so it was much easier to lie than it is now about who you are and what you've done and how old you are. Like, your digital footprint was nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just started like taking on these projects and doing, promo work and doing commercials. And, I always owned my own gear and was always out trying to make things really quickly and be able to show them off. So it kind of allowed me the opportunity to, I would make a thing or book a low or free job, and then I'd blast it around everywhere. Not really on social media because I don't think we super duper had that, but you'd have it on your website or whatever. You'd
Yeah.
send people a link, and then once you do two or three of anything, regardless of what you got paid, oh, that's the guy that did. This is the music video guy. He did those
Yeah.
three videos, and it doesn't matter how much you got paid for the last two. All they know is this is number three, and so
Yes.
I sort of use those strategies to work with clients and start to learn. You cut my teeth not just on film projects, but on like completed stuff. So it was two complete sides, different sides of the brain. Is I would be shooting on film, developing film and cutting with razor blades and editing together my senior projects, and then shooting on digital music videos for Sony
Wow.
and like songs that were on the radio. And it was like the band asked, I'll never forget, the band asked me to go. They're like, "Oh, do you want to go out? That's a wrap. Do you want to go out? We're gonna go out to the club and celebrate. We wrap this video shoot." And I'm like, I'm not old enough to go to the club with you. So I'm like, no, I gotta get back. I have to work on the edit, the label. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, we'll see you later. And I'm like, what is my life? This is so weird.
That's
Kept me out
awesome.
of trouble though.
Yeah, that's probably true too. I mean, it's definitely a great, we'll say hobby or hustle to be consumed with. Um, there is always this element in art where it's like, for lack of better words, like fake it till you make it. Like just like you said, just
Hmm.
build that resume, get out there, and then so I guess this snowballed into. I saw a little bit of this stuff. Like it was cool because being like someone myself who's a kind of like an amateur content creator in terms of like the tech side.
Mm-hmm.
You did stuff with like how you can shoot with an iPhone, which is like kind of what I
Mm-hmm.
do most of the time as well. And I thought that was really cool because like there's a different beast to that. That's obviously much different from directing and writing and filming your own horror film. But I can see how maybe that lends to, again, your whole journey, doing a bit of that and why you would become such a great storyteller when it comes to horror. Um, but where does this shift come into place? Where do you kind of search deep down inside and you're like, you know what, now it's time. Like now I'm gonna like delve into a horror flick.
Well, I mean, I had the idea for the Mean One for years, like 6 or 7 years. Once you decide you want to make a movie, and I had made a couple that, went around and were just in the indie circuit. I made a action film that was like a adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game. I made
Hmm.
a zombie film noir movie that was like Sin City meets Walking Dead. It's like a live action comic book kind of thing. I had done a Christmas movie, like I had done all kinds of stuff, but I always had this idea that I couldn't let go of, which was the idea to do the Grinch as a horror film. And when you're pitching, you always have to have like options, right? You go to a thing and they're like, okay, what do you have? I'm like, oh, I've got this action movie, is the main thing I'm pitching. And then I've got this other thing that's pretty good, but I really want you to focus on the first thing. And then if you need a third thing, my third thing was always Grinch horror, Christmas horror movie, and he's like already a monster, and I had sort of a thing. Um, and it had just been floating around, and everyone had said, "No, you can't do it. You'll never be allowed. You'll." I'm like, "No, no, I have a take. I have a way. We're going to pull it off. It's called parody, and here's how I would do it." And I ended up every Christmas, I said I was going to shoot like a short film version of this or some little teaser, some sketch, just something, jam
Yeah.
in my best jokes, like like an SNL digital short, put it out there and be done. Scratch the itch and be
Yeah.
free of this burden. And so I had a commercial. My crew that I normally shoot with was booked for a weekend in like the second week of December, 2021, and this commercial fell through, and we're like, okay, well, I know everybody's free, so like let's just try it. Let's make a little concept reel. So I made like a 3 minute. I strung all my favorite jokes together. I made a 3 minute like reel, like a fake trailer style. I put it
Yeah.
out around Christmas. It got some attention, and I sent it to some producers that I knew. And I was like, remember that Christmas horror thing I was telling you about? Here you go. It's done. In my brain, thinking like, this is it. It's done.
Yeah.
And they all started asking, "Oh, cool! I can't wait to see it, the whole thing." I said, "No, there is no. I mean, like, literally, it's done. This is it. It's just in a trailer style. I promise you, there's no other footage. There is no rest of the movie." And they're like, "Are you sure? Because I think there's something here." And so, from January of 2022 until May of 22, I started working on the script, and I got Flip Kobler and Finn Kobler, who I had worked with before, who also, are Disney writers. I'd worked with them a whole bunch. So they had written
Yeah.
like The Lion King 2,
Oh,
and
cool.
Flip, along with his wife Cindy, had also the second Aladdin movie. They did a Beauty and the Beast Christmas film. Like they just have all these like crazy Disney credits. And I knew I wanted to have this like sort of magical Christmassy fun feel. And I was like, hey, do you
Yeah.
folks want to collaborate with Finn and write this thing? And so we had about 4 or 5 months to put it together. And then we, put a few nickels together. It's a very, very small, low budget, like web video thing.
Mm.
Um, and we shot it and we started editing it, putting it together. And then turned out our web video wasn't going to go to Tubi. It was going to be in theaters, which was nuts. And my life has never been the same ever since, is pretty much it.
It's a cool concept because so the Grinch obviously is already kind of like this beast monster of a character. And this past Christmas, I learned how terrifying the Grinch can be, and why like it's genius that you had this parody in mind. Because my daughter, up until this past Christmas, loved the Grinch. She's 4 now, but at this time she's 3.
Mhm.
Loves the Grinch. We're watching the films, even the Jim Carrey one where he kind of like flirts a bit with like how drink in hand, the Grinch can be a little bit mean at
Right.
times. Yes.
Mhm.
But she loved the Grinch, and we had a stuffy and all that stuff. Then my dad decides that he tells me he's gonna get a Grinch outfit, and surprise my daughter and show up at the house as the Grinch.
Mhm.
Well, let me tell you, he got like the Timu version of the
Oh
Grinch
no.
outfit. And so he shows up at the door, and even I look over and I'm like, holy shit, this is terrifying.
This is not gonna go good.
And my dad's just not even saying anything. He's just like eyes glazed
Lurking.
over. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I guess he's trying to be his Grinch. And my daughter just like loses it. And I guess like rightfully so. But now the Grinch is like banned in the house. I
Oh
remember
no.
that or catch her watching the Mean One because like then I realized, but this is the fine line that you play, I think, and it's you create a parody that's there. There's some room to work with it, but then you also kind of like again toe the line of it's comedy, it's parody, but it's still very much horror. And then it's still
Hmm.
very much like magical too. And like you kind of did that with Screamboat. So it's interesting that you had Disney writers working with you because I
Hmm.
feel like it's not just like you said, like a horror film where it's like, okay, we're going to shoehorn these characters in there and make like a scary Grinch who's going to hurt people. It's still very much like there's the narrative and it kind of has this like dreamy atmosphere and until it takes a few dark turns. But I think it's a really great job in how you kind of amalgamate all these things. And like I said, it's not too far one way. It's not like silly, scary movie,
Hmm.
ridiculous parody, but then at the same time, it's not just like this horror film that has a character shoehorned in there. So very interesting that you even work with Disney writers and are able to put that together.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, it was something that was important to me, and people have this like idea that we hate these characters, that we don't care about these characters, and
Mhm.
a lot of times it's before they've seen the film because the Mean One and Screamboat, they're a horror, but they're also love letters to these characters. We really take the
Mm.
source material seriously. Um, I liken it to like a kid playing with his in the sandbox, right, with their toys, and it's like, oh, well, what if we, took GI Joe and put him in space, or put him underwater, or put him in the sand, whatever. So, something like the Mean One, we didn't want to do a Michael Myers knockoff and give him a green face. We wanted to do
Yeah.
the Mean One. So there's Dr. Seuss references all over the place. And the tone is still, it's a Christmas movie first, right? It's like a Hallmark horror. It's got a really good, romance and something you could watch, whether it's you're drinking whiskey or eating cookies or making Christmas cookies.
Yeah.
Like that really was the point, and it was kind of interesting because there were some people who expected when they saw David and they said, "Oh, the makeup looks really cool," and "Oh, he's the Art the Clown." It's going to be, this big bloody mess. And we started seeing these articles, and I'm like, oh no, this is not like it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a
Yeah.
movie like you would see, and you're watching it under the mistletoe, and you snuggle up with
Yeah.
your girlfriend. And it's scary, but it's silly and fun. And when it's done, you might, have a smile on your face. Is what we set out to do. And there are some
Yeah.
people who are like, no, there's not enough blood in the film. I'm like, that wasn't the point. It's just
You're like,
not that.
listen,
It's Christmas, damn
wait for
it.
Screamboat. Like,
Yeah, right. Well,
yeah, you're
we
gonna get
came
blood
back
in
with more
Screamboat.
blood on that one. Yeah, we even
Like the
more than
one
made up
thing,
for it.
audience feedback. Okay, we'll save the blood and do that on Screamboat. What was cool though was like I did get that sense of the film where it's still like again I think it definitely could make it it will make it on my list of like seasonal watches and around Christmas time and it's
Oh,
playful,
I
it's
love that.
fun. But what I thought was so cool was that you basically created the scene kind of. I'm making a stretch here, but the opening scene of Terrifier 3, you'd already kind of done
Hmm.
it. You had already
Yes, I
kind
did. I noticed that when I saw Terrifier 3, I was like, I'm gonna have to text Damien because this is not. So I see some things. I see some things here. Yeah, I mean, it's literally the almost the same thing. Obviously, the Mean One does not kill any kids.
yeah.
But I watched it and I was like, you can watch the two side by side, and it's totally fine because I know this wasn't intentional.
Yeah, of course.
Because I asked them, I was like, look here, guys, come on now, okay? You just go shot for shot. Like I could have given you my shot list. You wanted to just
Yeah.
do that. But like even the eye lines are the same. Like, she walks down the stairs, left, right to left, and she looks
Yes.
left. Like it's so similar. I'm like, initially
Yeah.
when I heard it was going to be a Christmas movie, I was like, there's no way these two things are not related. But I can confirm they were going to make that a Christmas movie before anyone saw the Mean One. So, because
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was is really those shots. Like, and even like
yeah,
David's not in frame right away. You just kind of see that he's
and
there,
his
and
back's
she
to the
comes down the
camera
stairs.
and
Yeah, his back's
everything.
to the
Yeah.
camera. Yeah, that was cool. And I I'd obviously watched the film because it was before Terrifier 3, but revisiting it, knowing I was going to chat with you again, I was like, holy shit. Like this, I was like, wait a second here. Like this is already
Yeah.
done. But
Yep.
yeah.
I am the
Um,
inspiration for Terrifier 3.
yeah,
That's
we're
the
gonna run
takeaway.
we're gonna run with that. We're gonna like cut this clip. We're just gonna go viral online and people eat it up because anything Terrifier related, it'll take
It
off. Okay,
all
it's just
it
clever
does. Well,
promo.
I asked them too. I said, there's got to be some correlation, right? And they're like, no, the idea to make Terrifier 3 a Christmas movie came when they were doing pickups for Terrifier 2, and it was Christmas time, and they're like, oh, if we put blood on the lights and we like, oh, it actually could be really something really spooky and fun and different. So
Yeah,
they were like, we promise we didn't rip off the mean one. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm actually in Terrifier 2. Did you know that?
you are.
I am. I
What?
make a very, very, very brief, tiny appearance when Art the Clown is naked in the laundromat. He's
Yeah.
reading a newspaper, and they used a newspaper that had me, Mike Levy, Steve Della Sala, and one of our teachers. They used that newspaper because they had it lying around. So I'm like in it, out of focus. Art's reading this newspaper, so I'm in Terrifier 2. We're in the theater, and I elbowed my wife. I'm like, Amy, I'm in the movie. And she's like, shut up, stop talking. I'm like, look, I'm in Terrifier. I didn't get paid nothing for that.
And that's the actual article that existed from you guys when you were
Yes,
younger. Oh,
yes,
that's
it's
so
a real,
cool.
it was not made. I know because it's still framed at my grandmother's house. So every time I go home, I'm like, you still have this newspaper from 2004? And they put it in the thing and they didn't say anything to me. So I go to see it and I'm like, those punks, I gotta get them back. So
Is this
I
your
have to get,
Italian grandmother who makes amazing pasta?
yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So they went over
Yes, it
there.
is.
They probably got a nice meal, took the article, used you in Terrifier,
Right.
and you didn't see a dime for it.
And I didn't see a dime. No. Well, I know that's they're I know that the Terrifier is not the most financially lucrative endeavor, so I understand. They're just trying to
You're
make it work
modest.
over there.
Yeah. Um, about like these films, like, do you think it works really well because you're kind of invading like a safe space, like the stuff that we kind of covet as children, like whether it be like Willie Steamboat or The Grinch? Do you think that's
Mhm.
why it works really well for horror too? Is kind of like taking something and kind of flipping it on its head because it is this like safe space, and then you're kind of corrupting that.
Um, Not really. I mean, it's a fair assessment, if you take something you wouldn't expect to be scary and make it scary, but I think
Yeah.
it's more nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
more of like I don't want to call it nostalgia bait, but there aren't a lot of cartoons for Mickey Mouse that are geared towards people my age, right? And I remember the
Yeah.
cartoons I used to watch as a kid, and I still watch, all of the Christmas cartoons. And this is not for me now. This is something I have an attachment to. And so
Mm.
for me, a lot of times these reimaginings are a way to sort of reconnect with your childhood, but it's not just looking at an old cartoon and remembering when, but now it's a new way to engage with this. Now I like horror movies. Now I like, raunchy comedies. So
Yeah.
Screamboat is a way to be able to have fun with Steamboat Willie, with Mickey Mouse, with these iconic characters, and sort of reignite that love and that passion. I mean, I don't care who you are. You go to Disney World, you see a guy you see Mickey, and you want
Yeah.
to give him a hug, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. And David's first day on set, and we had done makeup tests, and he had done fit tests, and we had built the puppet to look like him, and we had his head, the face that they used for Terrifier to make his prosthetics was in the shop, and we used that to make his
Oh,
Steamboat Willie
cool.
head. So like, it's not like I didn't know what the creature was going to look like. So we
Yeah.
had done all of these tests, but his first day on set, he's got blood and cuts and claws, and he comes clomping out in his big shoes, and he's like, "What are we doing first, Steve?" I'm like, "First thing you got to do is give me a big hug, you big fur ball." Like he's scary, but he's so cute. Like you don't, it just ignites something in your brain that like I want to hug Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
But then we get to, give him a big weapon and have him run around slicing off appendages and genitals and stuff. And it's fun. And I didn't see not one person on our set, whether they were in front of the camera or behind the scenes, who wasn't like didn't instantly want to like take pictures of Willie or take pictures of the monitor or like, oh, I want to get a picture with him. Like you want to stand
Yeah.
next to him. It's this is not a movie star. Like this is my childhood. It's right there in front of us. And it's not a guy in a suit like a mascot costume. It's just very plain, very 2D, right? Black and
Yeah.
tan and whatever. And like our Willie, because the basis of it is a mouse, it's really tangible. So he's got animal fur. He's got
Yeah.
real eyes that blink when he moves his eyebrows, when he moves his mouth, his teeth. Like this is a live giant anthropomorphic mouse, and it's like it doesn't matter. He could be there eating lunch or smoking a cigarette, and you'd be like, "He's so cute. I want a picture of him." Like it's just something. There's a magic to that, and so that's what sort of what I think we're reawakening and recapturing, and like, oh, I think I want a Steamboat Willie T-shirt. Like
Yeah.
I'm an adult man, and now I'm like, it's
Or a
our
drinking glass.
right. I know. Well,
Well,
got these
I think you know
little
what? I think that's great that you mentioned that because like being like we all wanted to be like Imagineers and I have friends who they do 2 trips to Disney a year. They do one with the family. They bring their kids, entertain their children, and then one for themselves. So I
oh
do like
wow.
that idea of it really kind of being more of this like nostalgic and kind of capturing that magic that we all loved growing up, but just again tailored in a different way that also meets some of our other interests. I think that's like
Right.
a really cool way of doing it. My glass is low. I want to pour something else before we
Yeah.
continue our
Let's do
conversation here.
it.
I said you could choose
Oh
um,
boy.
between the
And do you
others,
have
so
everything that I have?
I do. Yeah, I brought out all the bottles here to.
Okay. So we could switch to the McKenna because we did talk about our love for Scotch. Um, and I've had the other two. So why don't we do the Henry McKenna 10 year? Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
And for
So
that, I'm breaking out this other Steamboat Willie shot glass. I got
yeah.
this one right here. See if you can see it. This is the scene that we actually recreated in
Oh, cool.
the
Yeah,
see if my hand blocks it.
yeah. Give it
This
a
is the one
background.
yeah, the one we recreated with him tapping his toe and playing the steering wheel. No dead captain at the bottom, but that's just for now because the movie just came out. Maybe in the future.
All right, I'm gonna pour some here. Steven's gonna do the same.
I'm
So
open.
yeah, this is a Henry McKenna bottled and bond as well, 100 proof, 50%. So we're kind of just, I think it's like a bottled and bond episode. And if we go into the bottled and bond act, I'm sure there's some parallels with like timelines and Disney significance and and that's where my brain would go if we were doing a whiskey morgue pairing.
Cheers, by the
Yeah,
way, to the laughing at the movies. Mm. Oh man, that's smooth. Wow, that's really good.
yeah, I love like this for a while. I don't know if you
Oh
know
wow.
the critic Fred Minnick. He's a whiskey reviewer. He's a big personality online now. He's been in the game for a while. He gave this like its highest praise. It won a bunch of awards and then disappeared from the shelves for a long time.
Right, immediately, just like boop, it's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, it's like that Bourdain effect, right? Like you'd go
Hmm.
somewhere and you just have to say it's great. It's finally like the dust has settled a little bit. But the
Hmm.
fact that this is like a 10-year bottled and bond, you can find it for like 60 on the shelf. It's kind of hard to
Wow.
beat, man. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like it's to me, it just has almost like that vintage taste too, where there's a lot of like butterscotch and a little bit of cinnamon, and it's like just super delicious.
Yeah, it's very smooth and light on the smoke, which maybe because it's 10 year and not like, because I feel like when they get older, the scotches tend to really like you get that burning, forest fire flavor after it. But this is nice. This is like an easy sipping scotch. I like this.
Yeah. Actually, this is a bourbon. So
Oh, it is a bourbon. Oh,
yeah, it
it's
is a
just a
bourbon. Yeah.
10-year bourbon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know because
Wow.
bourbons, yeah, for a while, because like it's funny you mentioned that because for I'd say the last 5 years, you almost didn't see age stated bourbons, never mind 10-year, just because there was such a hype that you wouldn't
Hmm.
even get that product. And like I said, whether it be the hype of like this or like the market getting eaten up so fast, like bourbon, and people will say like a sweet spot is like 7-year, 8-year because it's fresh
Hmm.
oak, it's new oak, sorry, and they're getting a lot of like that charred wood, like you said, whether it's like the tannins or the smoke. Um, but yeah, so now these kind of are a little bit more available on shelves. But yeah, like 10-year, I feel like it's still like at a little bit of a lower proof. It's not cast strength, really rounds it out and it is super tasty. And it's like again, without the hype, if this is on shelf and it's $60, I will take this all day and
Yeah,
um and have this as a sipper.
that's really good. Get out there and get some.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Let's start the hype again. Let's
That's right. Well, not in my area, not where I live. The yes, so timeline wise, we knew that the mean one was going to be initially he started off and he was very Sasquatch like in the script.
yeah.
Quick glimpses, very much leaning into the monster side of the design, not so much the playful Jim Carrey side of the
Hmm.
creature. So, but we knew we needed like a creature performer to play the role, and Terrifier 1 had very recently gone on to Netflix. And it was like, guys, your movie's on Netflix. And they were like, I know, it's crazy, right? And I wasn't big under the convention circuit. I was going, but I wasn't like around seeing, sort of that building of you're seeing more and more Art the Clown shirts, more and more Art the Clown
Yeah.
hats. So I know that they had been working on Terrifier 2 for years because they had to stop during the pandemic and stuff. And I was like, hey, what do you think about the guy who plays Art the Clown in your Terrifier thing as to play the mean one? How was Terrifier 2? And they're like, Terrifier 2 was really fun. We had a great time working with him. He's awesome. You guys should connect. And it turned out he had experience. He had played this character before. He liked the script. And so he came out and he did the mean one and we shot the movie and then we were working on it. And then as Terrifier 2 is about to come out, they're asking who's in your movie. And I'm like, we have the clown from Terrifier. And they're like, what? A lot of the buyers still didn't know, like overseas, like, the industry people didn't really know what was percolating. I was like, Terrifier 2 is going to be huge.
Yeah.
This is our guy. And they didn't really realize until Terrifier 2 sort of exploded and people were throwing up in the theaters and, all that stuff, that Terrifier 2 turned into a big thing. And then they're like, wait, you have the clown from Terrifier 2? And I was like, I've been saying this since Met. Yes, we have the clown from Terrifier 2. His name is David. He's awesome. And he really brought like a lot of life and personality to the mean one. But because we had already designed the movie to be sort of a Sasquatch film, so more of a monster movie, there are moments where he gets to really play and be playful and be big and out and, in the film. And then there's
Hmm.
other moments where he's supposed to be more sort of scary and in the shadows. And once we got to the edit room, you're like, man, those scenes with the mean one where he's really out, those scenes are the most fun. So obviously we had already made the movie, so there wasn't really anything we could do to incorporate David into it, because he had already flown back to New York at that point. So we're like,
Hmm.
okay, let's tailor the film as best we can. But if we make another one, we work with him again, he's going to be out because watching him perform is just so much fun. And so that's where we got to Screamboat. The team had just finished shooting Terrifier 3. We actually couldn't shoot Screamboat because A, Willie wasn't in the public domain, but B, they had to shoot Terrifier 3 first. Like we had a
Okay.
deal with them. I said, look, I don't want to mess with your schedule. You shoot Terrifier 3 first, and then when you're done, we'll make Screamboat.
Hmm.
So they shot Terrifier 3 in like April or I think it was like February, March, April in that time of last year. And then that whole crew got like th 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, and then they got on my boat with their Terrifier 3 crew shirts, and then we went and we shot Screamboat.
That's awesome. And it was a decommissioned ferry, right, that you used for.
That's right. Yes, we used a decommissioned ferry for a bulk of the shooting. We shot in New York City, so we're on in I'm from Staten Island, so we shot
Yeah.
on Staten Island mostly. So we're on a decommissioned ferry for I'd say 2/3 of the shoot. In addition to doing some production in Manhattan, because there's like a ferry terminal where everything takes off. That was
Hmm.
shot at the real ferry terminal on at 1 o'clock in the morning on Mother's Day. Like when
Yeah.
when is it? Because you're not allowed to close the place down, no matter what your budget. So it was
Yeah.
like, okay, what's the one? Like, when are we most likely to have New York City be nice to us? And we're like, Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So we shot those scenes, and then we took because everyone was staying on Staten Island. We took the moving ferry back, and I filmed some shots of the cast on the real ferry while it was moving. And then we did some scenes in on an LED wall to help shrink David down,
Oh, cool.
like the Mandalorian kind of thing, right? Where
Yeah.
you would like doing like in camera green screen basically. And then we did some scenes. We couldn't find a place that would let us do the water sequences that we wanted to do because they were like, "You're going to ruin our pool. You're going to ruin our whatever."
Yeah.
So we built this pool and we put we put the cast in it and we were able to fill it with fake blood and debris and built this box and sank it outside at night and then we put all of our miniatures in there and that's how we're able to flood the miniatures because I've been like a fan of classic uh movie effects
Yeah.
since I was doing stop motion back when I was a kid. So I was like, oh, this is my chance. I'm going to do miniatures. I'm going to do models. I'm going to do all these things. And you build these things, but it's not a lost art, but it's not something people do a lot. So it was actually very difficult to find people that were able to like build things and then find places to go where you could because I live, living in Los Angeles, you're like, oh, I mean, I guess we could go to Warner Brothers, but it seems like overkill and our budget doesn't
Yeah.
support that at all. And then you'd go to any of the smaller studios and they're like, oh, this is just for like portraits. You're not going to put anything in the water. And I'm like, well, we built a metal box and we're going to sink it and we're going to fill it with fake blood. And also there's a puppet and they're like, yeah, that's, you can't do that here. So, it ended up forcing us to get creative. And I was like, I have a big book of special effects that goes back all the way to like the very beginning where the first vaudeville acts were
Oh,
transitioning into
wow.
making movies. And it was like, back when Star Wars came out, there weren't visual effects houses, right? You would call the guy who did it on the last one. And be like, hey man, you want to make a gorilla that moves? And he'd be like, yeah, let me
Yeah.
think about it. And then that's just how they would do it. Star Wars, there's a bunch of spaceships. You wouldn't call a spaceship company. Every movie had to reinvent the wheel or call the guy that did it on the last one. So
Yeah.
for us, it was like, okay, well, let's just assume we know nothing about how they would do it in a Marvel movie. What do we need? I'm like, well, I guess a GoPro, a miniature, and a big pool. I don't know. So there's all
Yeah.
this like wretched behind the scenes footage of like me in a wetsuit, like wearing goggles with a GoPro, like, okay, guys, let's make our big Hollywood movie. I'm going underwater with a puppet. But it was great. It's super fun, and there's something really I think that is lost on a really big movie where you feel sort of divorced from the filmmaking process when you're just shooting little pieces that are going to get cobbled together later. It's very
Yeah.
different when you're on a real set and you're on a real boat and the mouse is really there or the puppet's there or the blood's really spraying and it takes a lot longer for sure, but you're sitting there and you're like watching, it's like a paint by numbers, right? You're watching your
Yeah.
image sort of come together as you fill in these little pieces and it's working because you're seeing it. You don't have to guess. You're not well, this little nub's going to get sent off to somebody overseas and they're going to cut it and trim it and paste it in, and so it's cool. Practical filmmaking is what's fun. And then I think you can feel it in the film of like, oh, a bunch of people were sitting where you're sitting as the audience, and they were like, oh, this is cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And then you get to like represent that experience to the people as you're like slowly chunking through and building that experience.
And because I was gonna mention the like integrity of the film and using special effects, but what I didn't expect to hear from you is like just even that element of like, okay, yeah, you want to honor, you love special effects, you want to include them, but sometimes just having to bootstrap it and
Hmm.
being like, okay, yeah, like we could try to go to Warner Brothers, and then what's it going to cost? What are we trying to achieve there? Or like, how can we
Hmm.
make this happen and kind of getting innovative in doing that? And I would say that like horror comedies a lot of times almost get a free pass to use like wild CGI or editing
Hmm.
afterwards because you're like, well, it's a horror comedy, it's fun. So if blood splatters onto the screen, there's actually a few I won't name, but like I watched recently, great films, but like are overtly like CGI, like chainsaw comes out, blood splatter, it goes all over the screen. But I do enjoy that there's still a lot of those practical effects.
Hmm.
And I was thinking just all the blood spray originally when coming up with the question, but not even thinking about you being in a homemade pool
Hmm. The hope is that you
in
don't think
immersed in
about it. We don't
water.
want you, we don't want you thinking about it. We don't want you thinking about it, right? We want you to just watch it and have fun and be entertained and not think about the how sticky we all were trying to shoot these scenes.
It's I enjoy it though because I feel like if there's one like through line with like what you're doing and when you guys collaborate with Fuzz on the Lens, all that stuff, it always seems like it's this like true like again, I want to keep saying bootstrapping, but just everyone coming together and figuring out how do we get this done? Like we want to achieve something. Who's going to the hardware store? Who's going here to pick up this that we need, and then making it happen. I do think, like you said, I do think it does translate onto screen. And for someone like myself that's grown up watching a lot of like 80s horror and enjoying all the effects
Hmm.
artists' work who now get to tour the circuit as well, and they've done all these iconic scenes, like that's where I buy in. I always say like a lot of movies I've watched, whether it be like a ghost movie or a feature creature, I'm buying in. The story's great, and then once I see some kind of like CGI creature on screen, I check out. It's like even if I don't want to, even if I want to give it like the benefit of the doubt and like it, it's like
Hmm.
I can't. Like I want to see that puppet on screen or that like robot that was built, or I think all
Hmm.
of that does that movie magic, and that paint by numbers that you explained really does translate um, into the final product.
Well, I think there's something to I think it's twofold. One, all of everything in the movie is a fake, right? The people know what
Yeah.
they're going to say, right? They all got gathered here. They're standing in the dark, even though it's like you would just turn a light on. Like every element of it. There's no music in real life, right? When you're just standing
Mhm.
there, there's no spooky music underneath. So anything that you can do to help the audience suspend their disbelief into what they're seeing, I think is important. It's an important
Mhm.
part of the magic trick, right? Hiding the wires, making sure you believe that this heavy thing they're lifting is actually heavy, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is something to I liken it to like the Kermit the Frog effect, right? There's never been a more simple puppet than Kermit the Frog. He literally has ping pong balls for eyes. But for
Yeah.
some reason, you look at Kermit the Frog, an obvious puppet, a thing that's got a human inside of it, or Big Bird or whatever, and you don't question it. But you look at
Yeah.
certain computer generated creatures, and they're fun and they're awesome, and they can do they're puppets. They can do amazing things too. But there's something about them not actually being there that makes the danger a little different. That makes the experience just a little different. Like you're watching Toy
Mm.
Story. I mean, even when you watch a super cool superhero movie and the guy's suit is all 3D and they're swinging around or fighting and stuff, you're like, I mean, it's awesome. I've always wanted to see these two people characters fight, and it's like almost real. Like it's like they're there. It's not just hand
Yeah.
drawn. But you see Kermit the Frog, and his little mouth furrows, and Miss Piggy is like her head shakes, and like she doesn't have skin. She's not moving, but there's something about that. You're like, oh, they're really there. I accept this way more than
Mm.
I accept some digital creation. So I do think there's an element of filmmaking where even a mediocre like kill or gore gag buys you so much more, that really happened because it did.
Yeah.
Than I think some visual, digital trickery. And look, I'd be lying if I said that any of the big horror movies that you've seen that have great practical effects, or any movies, action, whatever, don't have some element of digital
Of course.
massaging, or to
Yeah.
blend it in, which is awesome. But I think there's just something about in-camera filmmaking where if you can shoot something, if you can shoot these pieces, the audience just feels it. They feel like I'm sitting here and I'm watching it happen versus I'm sitting here and I'm watching it happen, except that thing over there, which looks like, even though it was added perfectly, I know it didn't just happen like this.
Yeah.
And so you can have like a Blair Witch or even The Witch, where because it's all stuff that's just happening there and you're just seeing it, you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm there. Like I
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah.
It's that suspension of
I,
disbelief. You have to give the audience something.
I you finally just kind of like encapsulated everything that I was thinking, but I'm gonna take that Kermit the Frog explanation
Hmm.
and run with that, because that's exactly what it is. It's like, yeah, it's really just a puppet on someone's hand, but it's there, and that's become its own entity. That like that is for that moment Kermit the Frog. Steven, you're good at
Yeah,
this, man. I
it's
mean, this is why you're the filmmaker, man. Like this.
well, I honestly, it's not even my thing. It clicked for me when I heard about the making of the one of the most recent Muppet movies. Was like Tina Fey was saying how, when you shoot a movie, you shoot your close up and the person you're talking to is not on camera if it's your close up. So they
Yeah,
stand there to be your eye line, and if you're like, I hate you, they're there and they're reacting even though you can't see it. They're being a good scene partner, right?
yeah,
So it's not uncommon for certain movie stars to be like, hey, it's the back of my head, or my head's not even in it. Get the guy that looks like me to do this. I'm going to go work on my lines or whatever I'm going to go do.
yeah,
And it's, kind of crappy to do to your scene partner, but it's not uncommon. We all know that. And so it was funny because I remember reading a thing where Tina Fey was saying, like, okay, she did her coverage in the Muppet movie, and then they turned the camera around to shoot Kermit's close up. And she went to go stand next to the camera to be a good scene partner. And they were like, he can't see you. He doesn't have eyes. And she's like, oh, right. Like you just treat them like co-stars. You're not talking to the puppeteer. It's not like
yeah,
the guy's hiding behind a box or something. Like, when you're on set, it's just the puppet and the puppeteer. And you just on set, she's right there. And even she's like, oh, I want to make sure I can be a good scene partner. They're like, he can't see you, man. He doesn't
yeah.
have eyes. She's like, oh, yeah, that's okay. All right. Good point. Like I feel stupid, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
Even in person, you're still like, you're looking at the thing, and we saw it happen even on Screamboat. There's some puppet work where
Yeah.
there's a moment where my wife Amy, she's got a big battle. She plays Amber in the movie. She's got a big
Mhm.
battle at the end of the film. She goes toe to toe with the mouse, and there is a scene where the puppeteers who are using Willie's, David's stunt double as a puppet.
Yeah.
And so the puppet's like running, charging at Amy, and he's got a knife and he's swinging the knife around. And they didn't hear me call cut, so the mouse kept going to attack her. And her scream in the movie is real because
Oh,
she's fighting and then she falls and the mouse is coming at her. I called cut, so she let her guard down, and then the mouse keeps coming at her. And we've been through enough like horror nights, haunts, and stuff that I
yeah.
know a real scream, and she was
Yeah.
really screaming. She's like, ah, and then everybody laughed at her, and she's like, you stand over here and have this thing running at you with a knife. It's scary. I'm like, okay, that's fair. All right. But you buy it, you believe it when it's really there. Even if you see some guy's hand in its back or rods or strings or whatever, it's just there's an emotional connection. You can't fake that.
Yeah, it brought me back to like I just watched a documentary on Child's Play and kind
Mm.
of all the robotics that went into the Chucky doll, and just yeah, that idea of like if I'm lying down and there's people like off to the side controlling it, still you see that
Mhm.
doll running at you, you see Willie running at you. Yeah, I'm probably gonna let out a real scream as well. So
It's
Amy, it's
it's
okay. It's definitely warranted. Okay, this is
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I mean the his little blade was, I mean, it wasn't sharp, but it wasn't safe. Like, I mean, so like sometimes you just got to do it for real.
yeah.
I love Child's Play. I looked at a lot of Leprechaun, Child's Play, Troll. Like I looked at a lot of movies that featured small
Mm.
characters just to see like how they made him creepy, and in the older films, it's a little more obvious what magic tricks they're using and how they're pulling it off. And two is I really love Child's Play two. That one's
I
really
always
good. That
talk
whole
about
end in the
how
factory and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like the people talk about like how sometimes sequels don't live up to the original. And I was like, I feel like for me personally, it was the reverse. I always say Child's Play 2 is I'd prefer over number one. And it's the
One's
same thing for
weirder.
me. Yeah.
One is
Yeah.
weirder, which is good if you're like, oh, I didn't expect you went with voodoo of all things.
Yeah.
Okay. Like one's weird, and then you get to two, and because like the creature is out, like if
Yeah.
we were to do more Screamboat, it makes you think like, oh, okay, well, you need to spend the time building up to your creature and having characters say not knowing like there's no way a mouse is small. There's no way the doll is alive. So you're really limited in what you can do because you're building up that tension and the suspense. But then on two, we as the audience, everybody knows this, all the relevant people know the doll is alive. You
Yeah.
can really have fun with it right out of the gate. And it's something I always liked about the Scream movies is they never wait too long because it's the whodunit is what's interesting. So
Yeah.
you can see Ghostface at the end of the first screen, the first scene of Scream, and you're like, okay, great. Now he's out. Now he can do whatever. Like we've established who he is. And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, I think that that's what like two. He's really off the chain, and his lines are ridiculous, and he's the Amy and I always just we get into this thing where because she helped me a lot with the script and dialing in the
Yeah.
story and stuff. We developed the movies together, and so we're watching these films and she's watching Child's Play. And she's like, "How come nobody ever punts Chucky? Like, how come no one ever just in the early ones? Like, how come no one
Yeah.
ever just one swift kick right, just send him flying?"
Yeah.
Because like he's tiny. You grab him by the ankles and you just swing him around over your head. Like
Yeah.
you probably should be a solid strategy. So they have to really bend over backwards if he's behind you and he's got a knife and you're like, okay. I mean, I guess we're scared.
Yeah. And I think the scary part about it, truthfully, is like, yeah, you can swift kick the little doll or creature, but they're
Mhm.
probably gonna just keep charging back at you. I think that's what's scary. Um, Before we wrap up here, I think we should just taste one more just for kicks, if
I
you're
think
down
we
for
have
it.
to. I think
Yeah.
we have to. Unfortunately, I only have two Steamboat Willie glasses on the desk, so I'm going to get the third one
Yeah, let's
because
do
that's
it.
how I get down. I keep it real. We're going to go with, we actually make a shirt just like this one with Steamboat Willie's head, or Screamboat Willie's head on the wheel. You can get it online. Rock Rebel sells it. Scarecrow sells it. I think this one's in Hot Topic. I'm not sure. But we have a shirt just like this that is Steamboat Willie's head. And it is our shirts, one of two shirts that we can confirm the good folks at the Mouse House will not let you into their amusement park wearing. So if you wear our shirts, they're like,
Really?
Nope, they'll make you change, and this design is one of them.
I feel
That's
like
my
that,
personal
yeah, like that just needs to be
claim to fame.
plastered like as a disclaimer on the back of the shirt. Like you will not be allowed into the mouse house if you're
Warning,
wearing this
not
shirt.
welcome at Disney.
Yeah.
The what do you think? Larson? I think larceny. Yeah,
You know what's
because I've
that
had the
larceny?
Elijah Craig.
It's a weeder. It's so good. Like so they do different batches, but this particular batch I love and it's higher in proof. It's 62%, but I dig it. So let's do that.
Yeah. But yeah, we found that out because we've been touring all around the country. I think our next appearance is in Orlando for Spooky Empire, and we meet people that work in the different parks or have worn our shirts to the parks,
Hmm.
and they're like, hey, they know about your movie. I'm like, well, I mean, I know they know, but they're like, no, they
Yeah.
like security, they'll give you shit.
And then years from now they'll say how like it actually really helped publicity and embrace it. Who
Well,
knows?
I mean, look, I think there's a world in which you say, hey, everybody knows Mickey Mouse. When was the last time someone said the word Steamboat Willie? And they've been saying the word Steamboat Willie since January of 2024, or to
Yeah.
2025 this year. Steamboat Willie, because all the articles say Steamboat Willie, comma, the original Mickey Mouse. So
Yeah.
I think I'd like to believe we're benefiting them in some way. And if they were to ask me, gun to my head, and I'm sure there would be, I would say that's why we did it. So cheers to Mickey Mouse.
Cheers. You're probably jumping in right now where we edited out just a few bits of what we were talking about, but cheers to Mickey Mouse and let's have some larceny. What was edited out wasn't necessarily breaking the law, but I think it pairs well with a title such as larceny. We'll
That's right. That's right. Some interesting insider stuff. And
yeah.
all you have to do if you want to find out what we said is subscribe to Mike's Patreon or buy him some whiskey in person and he'll tell you what we just discussed.
Stephen, this is why we need to collaborate. I haven't started a Patreon yet, but this is a tier one will gain you
Tier
access
1
to
it will gain you access to all the stuff we cut out of the podcast. That's too hot for TV.
yeah.
This larceny is really tasty. It's really, really good. You can definitely get the bite of it being a little
There's
the
heat.
higher
Yeah, there's
proof.
definitely heat.
Yeah. And you can, mm, that's really tasty. I got these glasses as a Christmas gift from a Secret Santa. He thought he was being funny. And I've kept them. And only when I celebrate, like Screamboat, when you're a filmmaker, it's a long journey from like page to screen, from screen
Yeah.
to big screen, from, finished to streaming, et cetera, et cetera. And it's important in my life. Yeah, I like to believe that I manifest wins by keeping either nice bourbon or champagne in the house at all times. So
Hmm.
people come over and they're like, "Oh, what's the champagne for?" I'm like, "I don't know yet, but I have it here because I'm sure that there will be a reason to open it up." And so I try to manifest my wins. And so the my Steamboat Willie shot glasses are something like I only break them out for Screamboat wins. And every time we get good news, I'm like, these are not, I know they're technically collector's items, but
Yeah, yeah.
I take them out when
Well,
I've got something to celebrate. So,
well, I appreciate that, and that means a lot to me for real, Stephen. That even the shot glasses are coming out to do this because like as a genuine fan of yours, it's cool to be able to chat and have drinks. Before we get to the end of this, I have a few questions that I need to ask.
mhm.
I feel like we got a good snapshot of like the Mean One and Screamboat. Um, your Nona, favorite pasta dish. I know she like I mentioned her earlier. I read articles she gets kind of brought up and how she's
Oh yeah.
super generous and kind-hearted. What's your favorite dish that your Nona makes?
My favorite dish that she makes would have to be she makes a really mean. Well, her best dish that's not pasta would be chicken parmesan. She
Hmm.
makes an amazing chicken parm, and typically she pairs her breaded chicken with sauce and cheese with a baked ziti, which is breaded pasta with
Yeah.
with meat and cheese and sauce. So those are always good. I've had friends come over really hungover and from the night before, and Nana's baked ziti straightens him out immediately. She's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
just make, she didn't even know people were coming over. She's like, "Oh, I see what I make," and she whips that up. And before we shot Screamboat, we actually had the whole cast, everyone that and crew that had flown in because I have a lot of collaborators that I work with in Los Angeles. Shout out
Yeah.
to the LA team. And so I brought them in to help support the New York team that had just come off of Terrifier 3. So it was like Mean One team, Terrifier team came together to make this
Cool.
movie. And I was like, hey, we're all going to be in New York. Let's get together and put my grandmother to work and we'll make, a nice dinner. And she made pasta for everybody. And, we were just getting together and enjoying each other's company. And, getting ready to embark because you making movies like going to war
Of course.
and or going into battle, I guess. And it was just a nice bonding moment. And I have some fun photos of us just having some wine and eating pasta. And
Yeah.
it's very amorphous when you make horror movies to try to explain to your family what you're doing because. Like I'm not going to show my grandmother the scary movies. I directed Miss World America at one point, and she's like, "I like this. Why do you make more of this?" And like, actually, there's the pageant industry is far darker than the horror industry, but
Yeah. Yeah. You want the real
fine.
horror?
You
Yeah.
want the real horror? Yeah, go behind the scenes of that. But yeah, that's definitely her number one. And then she makes fresh zeppolis, which are like
Oh, nice.
yeah, they're like it's pizza dough, deep fried, covered. Oh, and
Yeah.
fried raviolis she makes too.
Ooh.
Every holiday, it doesn't matter what happens. She breaks out the fried raviolis and she's like, "Oh, don't you wish you still live here?" I'm like, "Yes, Nana, I miss you. I'm like, give me the raviolis, lady. Let's go." If you love what you do, there's some people that clock in, they do their job, they clock in, and working for the weekend or put it in the past and
Yeah.
whatever. But you work in film, we're doing 14, 16, 18-hour days. I mean, I'm on this 24/7. And I made a Christmas movie, which means I'm working around the holidays. So,
Yeah.
it's a very tricky and challenging job that asks a lot of you. And it's so awesome that because I get to do what I love, and it's not just something that, I do and then put behind me, but something I'm passionate. I mean, I wake up and stoked to whatever shitstorm comes into my inbox. Love it.
Yeah.
But then being able to like sort of share that with your family and like, they've come to visit my sets. My grandmother's been and my mother have been making meals for my crew like for years since I was in college. They were like, "Oh, if you're going to shoot nearby, maybe we'll bring something to set." And
Oh,
the bigger the crews get and the more people are there, I'm like, you can't make food for 50 people or you can't,
yeah.
like you can come to the set, but there's like nothing to see because it's a soundstage and whatever. So it was really cool that like this last movie, I came back to where I grew up. I came back to Staten
Mm.
Island and brought a lot of my LA friends who I work with and collaborate with. And we said, okay, there's 12 of you. Okay, we can go see Nonna. And then we went, we had pasta. And Jesse, who plays Pete in the movie, was like,
Yeah.
we got to go back to Nonna's. I'm like, Jesse, you live in Los Angeles. You can't go back to Nonna's. He's like, I got to get some more of them pasta. And then your mom made those peanut butter cookies. I want more of those cookies. And I was like, okay, fine. And then I think it has to be, I think it was like the last week of shooting, they sent cookies to set. And they're like, okay, these are for
Oh,
Jesse.
wow.
These are for this. These are for that. And I was like, guys, what do you do? We're at work. We can't, there's cookies are not going to make it out of my bag. But it's really
Yeah.
cool to be able to share that with your family. And that's what I like too about even working with Fuzz on the Lens and shooting on Staten Island is a lot of this business can be I don't want to say sterile, but for a lot of people, it's a job, and it should
Yeah.
be. I mean, people should be paid, and it certainly is. It's a hard work for sure, depending on which
Hmm.
department. I mean, it could be physically difficult, mentally taxing, emotionally, the whole nine yards. But being able to do it with your friends, and when times are tough, and it's like, yeah, but we all have each other's back, and we go way, way back, and to be able to do something fun and exciting, something that other people are going to love, and being able to share that with your friends and the hard stuff of making the movie. We're in it together and we all know how it's going to end. And we know
Yeah.
that when it's done, we're going to go back and do it again and, enjoy the highs and the lows together is great. It's what I think makes the Terrifier movies and Stream that they made and the Mean One that we did with our favorite crew members and the team that we brought over to Screamboat. It's what I think you can feel in these films and a lot of independent films where it's not a bunch of people doing the bare minimum to tick the box and go home
Yeah.
early. It's people who are like, no, I mean, these guys love horror movies. I mean, they
Yeah.
were going to the convention whether they're wearing our shirt or somebody else's shirt.
Yeah.
And we're on the boat, we're seeing the mouse. They're not taking pictures on their cell phone, even though I expressly asked them not to, because they're bored. They're like, no, they love this stuff. And I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
love this stuff too. And then you can't, it's infectious. You can't not feel that in the frame. So wasn't an easy movie to make. And I know that Terrifier 2 and 3, like those were not easy movies to make. But making it with your friends and being able to when it's done, celebrate the wins together and want to go back and like, no, let's do another one. Let's make more. It's the
Yeah.
best feeling in the world.
Well, I think it comes back to like circle back to the beginning. It comes back to that like high school. It feels like a bunch of high school friends making
Hmm.
projects. And I feel like this generation, I mentioned this to Jamie because she was talking about how whether it's Terrifier or Screamboat, it was like all hands on deck. Like you need to do something. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what your role is. Like you can have your title beside your name, but like we need someone to do this right now. But everyone is so invested. And I do think, not just because I'm getting to talk to you or I spoke to Jamie, but like this is our generation's camp of like really great indie horror that I
Hmm.
think people will look back at from years to come and for years to come and be able to really appreciate what this is because like you don't get more genuine than that. That it's like as close as you're gonna get to like the high school group of friends who are still making horror and are fans and are invested and are going to do whatever it takes to get the shot, the film, and put it all together. And I think that's really special, and it doesn't happen often. So I think, we are witnessing something special now. And like you said, like, you're listing off these films that are kind of like there's some overlap between them, but in my mind, they're all part of the same camp. And
Hmm.
and I think that's a really cool thing that we have going for us, or for you guys, us as viewers, for like this like wave or generation of horror. Before we wrap up, though, um, are we going to see a more grittier, violent version of Blade from you?
Ha! I don't know if anyone's ever going to see a gritty, violent Blade. I've definitely Marvel is technically Disney, but they're allowed to do their own thing. I've
Yeah.
definitely expressed my interest and enthusiasm of finally breaking out Blade for taking what I mean, look, the first one is so iconic, so good, and such an awesome balance of the horror and scary, but like it was doing comic book movies before they were comic book
Oh
movies. I
yeah,
mean, like just the
that's so
leather, the
true.
sword, like oh man, like a lot of people credit movies that came after Blade for stuff that
Yeah.
Blade did first. Um, you know, I hope. Fingers crossed. If
Yeah.
you're listening, Kevin Feige, I'm available and inexpensive. I mean, not free, obviously, but very flexible financially.
Just
Yeah, I
help
would
Steven pay his bills and we'll figure it
not
out.
even that,
Yeah.
not even that. Just like, three square meals in a cot, prison
Yeah.
rules. I'm fine. Like it's all good. I mean, look, I think there's something really cool about taking something that exists and reimagining it and paying homage to what came before and doing something new. And I think I could do something really new and really fun with the character and would lend itself to all my strength. I promise I won't cut off any genitals. I promise.
Yeah.
You let me do Blade. I'm not gonna slice off any other like important, critical below the belt body parts. I can't promise that for other movies I make, but for
Yeah.
Blade, I'm not gonna do it again. I'll be good. Um, but yeah, you never know. You never know. I keep myself
Well,
open.
fingers crossed. And like I said, usually I'm one who's a little bit skeptical of franchises digging back up like the films, but I do think based on your track record so far, it really is more of like you said, a homage and like a fresh take on let's re-envision and reimagine the story rather than kind of just like repackage what we know, which is what really interests me. Because again, like Blade One, love it. Really like that insight into like being really like the kind of the
Mhm.
first comic book movie before that kind of all took off in the later aughts. But yeah, I mean, we'll just cross our fingers. Stephen, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. For everyone watching, listening, let me know what you're watching, what you're pairing. What would you pair with Screamboat Willie, um, other than what we drank tonight? Um, let's do this again, man. Cheers.
I love it. That sounds great. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.